My fingers trembled as I held my phone, the screen blurry through the tears that kept falling, revealing a balance that stole my breath. Zero. Completely zero. Actually, worse, it was in the red, showing a debt of $1,000 that I had no idea how it got there. It was Sunday, 10:30 a.m., and I'd just left church, my heart still warm from the service, when I decided to check if the money from the week's baking sales had been deposited. What I saw made me collapse right there in the church parking lot, under the curious gaze of some of the other churchgoers. "Anna, are you okay?" Sister Mary's voice sounded distant, as if from another world. I couldn't answer. How could I explain that? Out of nowhere, all the money I'd saved with so much sacrifice had simply vanished. How could I explain that those negative $1,000 represented not just red numbers on a screen, but the end of my dreams, my daughter's plans, our chance at a fresh start? I walked to my car like a zombie, my legs shaky, my chest tight, in the driver's seat, my hands still trembling. I called the bank. The operator, with a mechanical and indifferent voice, confirmed what I already knew: authorized transfers in the early morning hours, using my personal password. Someone had accessed my account and taken everything. But who? Who knew my password, besides? The thought hit me like a punch to the stomach. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to push away the suspicion growing in my chest like a weed. It couldn't be. Not them, not my own family. But the pieces were starting to fit together with painful precision. My password, my daughter Sophia's birth date, followed by the last 2 digits of my social security number. Information only very close people could deduce. And there was more. The previous week, my brother Carl had casually asked about my savings, commenting on how I'd always been smart with money. My sister-in-law Patricia had joked about my stinginess for not lending them more money. And my own mother, she always knew exactly how much I saved, where I saved it, and how I saved it. My phone rang. It was Sophia, my 16-year-old daughter. "Mom, did you transfer the money for my enrollment? The deadline is today." I felt the world crumble. The enrollment for the technical course she so desperately wanted, her chance at a better future, the promise I had made that this time we would succeed, all vanishing along with those red numbers on the screen. "Honey, something unexpected came up. Can we talk when I get home?" The silence on the other end of the line was more painful than any scream. Sophia knew. She always knew that we depended on every penny, that every dollar was the result of hours of work, sacrifice, and deferred dreams. And now, once again, I was failing her. I drove home on autopilot, my mind flashing back 3 years to when everything started to fall apart. My husband, Richard, had left one Thursday morning, leaving only a note on the kitchen table. "I can't take this life anymore. Take care of Sophia. I'm going to try to be happy." Just like that, 15 years of marriage, a teenage daughter, a mortgaged house, and he simply decided he wanted to be happy elsewhere, with someone else. At that moment, with Sophia crying in my arms and bills piling up on the table, I could have given up. I could have succumbed to despair, depression, the emptiness that consumed my chest. But there was something inside me, a strength I didn't even know I possessed, that made me get up the next day and look for work. I got a job at a clothing store in the mall, earning just above minimum wage. It wasn't enough, so I started making sweets at home: brownies, truffles, coconut macaroons, all made with a mixture of love and desperation in equal parts. I sold them at the store, to neighbors, at church. Sophia helped me, packaging each little treat as if it were a small treasure. And they were, in a way. Each brownie sold represented one more day of electricity, a gallon of milk, a payment on the house mortgage. Gradually, I built a clientele. My sweets became known in the neighborhood. I started receiving orders for parties, weddings, birthdays. The money, always counted penny by penny, started to have a little left over. Not much. Never much, but enough to dream, to plan, to imagine a future where Sophia could study, where we could have a decent life. My family, initially, showed support. My mother, Mary, always came with a smile and words of encouragement. "So proud of my warrior daughter," she would say, hugging me tightly. My brother Carl, younger than me, frequently appeared to lend a hand, carrying bags of sugar, helping with groceries. Patricia, his wife, praised my sweets, and even referred me to some acquaintances. But over time, I noticed subtle changes. Visits became more frequent. Whenever I received a larger payment, conversations invariably turned to money. Carl started asking for small loans, always promising to repay next week. Patricia made comments about how well off I was now, always in a tone that bothered me, but that I tried to ignore. My mother, in turn, developed an uncanny ability to know exactly how much I had saved. It was as if she had a radar for my savings. "Anna, honey, you're so good with money, can't you help your brother? He's going through a rough time, or else it's great that you're doing so well. I imagine you must have a nice nest egg saved up by now." I helped. I always helped, even when it meant sacrificing my own needs, even when Sophia needed something, because they were family, because I believed that in hard times, that's what we did, we supported each other. But the loans were never repaid, the help became unspoken obligations, and I, in my naivete, kept believing I was doing the right thing, that I was being a good daughter, a good sister, that if our situations were reversed, they would do the same for me. The last big request had been 2 months ago. Carl showed up at home one night, visibly nervous, talking about a business opportunity he couldn't miss. He needed a $5,000 loan. "It's a sure thing, Anna. In 3 months, I'll pay you double." Patricia was with him, confirming every word, assuring it was a once-in-a-lifetime chance. I didn't have $5,000. I had $1,800, the result of months of hard work, of late nights baking sweets, of strict savings in every aspect of our lives. It was Sophia's tuition money, our emergency fund, the future I had fought so hard to build. "Anna, we're family," Carl insisted. "When you were down and out, who helped you? Now it's your turn to reciprocate." Guilt gnawed at me. It was true that they had supported me emotionally after the divorce. It was true that my mother had taken care of Sophia a few times when I needed to work. But it was also true that every dollar of that money represented sweat, tears, and sacrifice. In the end, I lent him $2,000. I kept the rest with a firmness that surprised even me. "That's all I can do now, Carl. I need a guarantee that you'll pay me back." He visibly got irritated, but he signed a paper I wrote myself, committing to returning the money in 2 months. Patricia rolled her eyes and made a comment that pretended to be a joke. "Wow, Anna, such formality, we're family." The 2 months passed. When I asked for the money back, Carl said the business hadn't gone as expected, but that he would pay me as soon as things got better. Patricia even hinted that I was being greedy for asking. And now, sitting in the car in front of my house, looking at the negative balance in my account, I knew. I knew who had done it. The question was no longer who, but how had I been so naive? I entered the house with heavy steps. Sophia was in the living room, books scattered on the table, studying for a test. She looked up when she saw me, and immediately her face changed. My daughter has always had this ability to read my emotions, as if they were words written on my forehead. "Mom, what happened?" I couldn't speak. I simply collapsed on the couch next to her, and let the tears flow freely. Sophia hugged me, and in that hug was all the understanding in the world. She knew that our dreams had been postponed again, that life had dealt us another low blow. "Someone stole our money," I managed to whisper between sobs. "All the money we saved for your tuition." Sophia was silent for a long moment, processing the information. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm, more mature than her 16 years. "We'll be okay, Mom. We always are." But I knew this time was different. It wasn't just a financial setback. It was a deep betrayal, a wound to the soul that hurt more than any material hardship. It was the discovery that the people I trusted most had robbed me, not only of money but also of faith in human kindness. The phone rang. It was my mother. "Anna, honey, can you come over? I need to talk to you about something important." There was something in her voice, a strange tone that made my heart race. Part of me wanted to believe she had called to tell me she had found out who had stolen my money, that she was on my side. But another part, a wiser part I preferred to ignore, knew that wasn't it. "I'm coming, Mom. The house where I grew up was only 10 minutes away. It was a place that always represented security, comfort, unconditional love. But when I parked in front and saw Carl's car in the driveway, I felt a chill in my stomach. I entered through the kitchen door, as I always had since I was a child. My mother was sitting at the table, with an expression I had never seen before. Carl and Patricia were in the living room, and I could hear their low voices, as if they were plotting something. "Mom?" She looked up, and in her eyes I saw a confused mixture of guilt and defiance. "Anna, sit down. We need to talk." I sat down, my hands cold, my heart beating so hard I was sure she could hear it. "Honey, you know your brother is going through hard times. His business didn't work out. He owes a lot of dangerous people." I began to understand where the conversation was going, but I didn't want to believe it. "Carl asked me for help. But you know I don't have any money." Then I remembered that you've always been very careful, always saved a little money. "Mom, you didn't do what I think you did." "Anna, listen, I borrowed the money from your account. It's not stealing, it's a loan. Carl will pay you back as soon as he gets back on his feet." The world seemed to stop. My own mother, the woman who taught me about honesty, about character, about doing the right thing even when it was difficult, was there admitting that she had invaded my bank account and stolen my savings. "How? How did you get my password?" She lowered her eyes, ashamed. "I paid attention when you typed it in, and knowing you, I knew it would be something related to Sophia." Carl appeared in the kitchen at that moment, with Patricia behind him. There was an arrogance in his posture that made me feel nauseous. "Anna, you don't need to make such a big deal out of it. It's just money. You can save up again. Just money." My voice was louder than I intended. "Carl, that just money represented 2 years of my life. 2 years waking up at 4 in the morning to bake pastries, 2 years saving every penny, 2 years dreaming about my daughter's future." Patricia crossed her arms and looked at me with disdain. "Oh, so dramatic. We always knew you were selfish, but we didn't imagine it would be to this extent." "Selfish?" I stood up, feeling a rage building inside me like a volcano about to erupt. "I'm the one who always helped you guys. I'm the one who lent money I didn't have. I'm the one who worked like crazy to stay afloat." "Exactly. Exactly." Carl slammed his hand on the table. "You always had this habit of playing the victim. Oh, my husband left me. Oh, I have to raise my daughter alone. Everyone goes through hardships, Anna. The difference is that some of us don't sit around complaining." His words hit me like daggers. Each syllable was loaded with venom, contempt, a cruelty I never imagined my own brother capable of. "And besides," Patricia continued, "you're always complaining about money, but look at your house, your car. You're not doing so badly." I looked around, seeking support in my mother's eyes. But she was silent, avoiding my gaze, as if she were a silent accomplice to this humiliation. "You don't understand," I whispered, feeling the tears welling up. "You don't understand what it was like to rebuild my life from scratch. You don't understand what it's like to give up everything for a daughter. You don't understand. What we don't understand," Carl interrupted, "is your stinginess. Family helps family, Anna. And you've always been too selfish to understand that." At that moment, something broke inside me. It wasn't just my heart, it was something deeper, the illusion that these people truly loved me, the fantasy that family meant unconditional support, the naivete of believing that kindness was always reciprocated. I left that house without saying a word, not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I knew that anything that came out of my mouth would be wasted. They had decided that I was the villain of the story, that my pain was drama, that my struggle was victimhood. All the way home, I cried. I cried for the years of unrecognized sacrifice. I cried for the betrayed trust. I cried for Sophia's dreams that once again would have to be postponed. But mostly, I cried for the end of my innocence, for the death of the Anna who believed the world was just, that people were good, that family was above all else. At home, Sophia waited for me with hot tea and an even warmer hug. I told her everything, every detail of the betrayal, every cruel word. My daughter listened silently, and when I finished, she said something I will never forget. "Mom, maybe they did us a favor. Now we know who they really are." There was a wisdom in those words that surprised me. Sophia, at 16, had understood something that I, at 42, was still struggling to accept. Some people only show their true colors when they have to choose between their interests and the well-being of others. If you're following this story and you identify with this pain, subscribe to the channel to continue receiving stories of overcoming like this, because I believe that sharing our experiences can help others find strength in the most difficult moments. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how to rebuild our lives once again, how to explain to Sophia that she would have to wait another year to fulfill her dream, how to find the strength to continue when the people who should have supported me had turned their backs on me. That's when I remembered a conversation I'd had weeks before with Sister Mary from church. She had mentioned an opening for a social project coordinator at a non-profit organization that served underprivileged families. The salary was better than the one at the bakery, and the job involved exactly the skills I had developed: organization, determination, the ability to transform little into much. On Monday, I called the NGO. I scheduled an interview for Wednesday. For 3 days, I prepared myself like I had never prepared for anything before. I researched the organization, developed projects, put together a presentation on how my personal experience qualified me to help other people in similar situations. The interview was with Mrs. Louise, a 60-year-old woman who had founded the NGO after losing her husband and finding herself alone with 3 young children. She listened to me tell my story, not the shortened version I usually gave, but the complete version, including the recent betrayal by my family. "Anna," she said at the end, "you know that here we work with people who have gone through the worst imaginable situations, people who have lost everything, who have been abandoned, betrayed, humiliated. To work here, you need not only technical competence, but also a deep understanding of human suffering, and above all, you need to have overcome your own wounds." "I'm still overcoming them," I admitted. "I won't lie and say it's already over. It still hurts. I still feel lost sometimes. But maybe that's exactly why I can help, because I know what it's like to be at rock bottom and have to find the strength to climb." She smiled. "That's exactly the kind of honesty we're looking for. You start next Monday." The salary was almost double what I earned at the bakery. More important than that, it was an opportunity to transform my pain into purpose, my experience into a tool to help other people. I quit my job at the bakery that same day. That night, I told Sophia about the new job. She hugged me tightly and whispered, "I'm proud of you, Mom." In the following weeks, my family tried to contact me several times. Carl called, apologizing but always justifying his actions. Patricia sent messages talking about misunderstandings. My mother showed up at my house once, crying, begging for forgiveness, but at the same time, implying I was overreacting. I didn't respond angrily. I didn't yell, accuse, or make a drama out of it. I simply set a clear boundary. I wouldn't maintain relationships with people who didn't respect my dignity. It was a painful but necessary decision. Working at the NGO gave me a completely new perspective. I met women who had lost much more than money. They had lost children, homes, health, hope, and I saw how each of them found a unique way to rebuild their lives. I learned that resilience isn't a characteristic some have and others don't. It's a skill that develops, a choice you make every day. 6 months after the theft, I was at an NGO meeting when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Anna, this is Detective Miller from the police department. We have a situation involving your family." My blood ran cold. "What happened?" "Carl Oliveira, your brother, was arrested for grand theft. He was running a scam targeting elderly people, pretending to be a bank employee. We found a list of victims, and your name is on it. We'd like you to come in to give a statement." I hung up the phone in shock. Carl, scamming elderly people, using the same tactics he had used on me, exploiting trust, manipulating feelings, stealing money from those who could least afford to lose it. At the station, I learned that the arrest was thanks to one of the victims, a 70-year-old woman, who, unlike others, had been suspicious and called the police. Carl had been under investigation for months. The money he had stolen from me was part of a much larger scheme. "Miss Anna," the detective said, "we know he's your brother, but we need your statement about the money he withdrew from your account without authorization. This will help us build his profile and ensure he's properly punished." I looked at the paper he handed me, the incident report. At that moment, I had to make a choice that would define not only Carl's fate, but also the kind of person I chose to be. I could lie, omit, protect my brother, even after everything he had done. That's what the old Anna would do, sacrifice herself for others, even when they didn't deserve it. Or I could tell the truth, tell about the theft, about the manipulation, about years of emotional abuse disguised as family help. I could choose to protect other potential victims instead of protecting my abuser. Detective, I said, picking up the pen. I'll tell you everything I know. I told about the stolen money, about the manipulations, about how he had used our family relationship to exploit me for years. Each word was a liberation, each sentence, a step towards my own dignity. When I left the police station, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace, not joy at Carl's suffering, but peace at having done the right thing, for choosing justice over blind loyalty, for protecting other people instead of protecting my own emotional comfort. My mother called that night. She was hysterical, yelling that I had destroyed the family, that I was an ungrateful daughter for reporting my own brother. I listened in silence to her accusations, her tears, her anger. When she finished, I said calmly, "Mom, I didn't destroy the family. Carl destroyed it when he chose to steal from me. You destroyed it when you chose to be his accomplice. I simply chose not to be an accomplice to either of you," and I hung up. A year later, I was at an NGO awards ceremony. I had developed a microcredit project for women victims of domestic violence that had become a benchmark in the city. Sophia was by my side, beautiful in her technical school uniform that she had finally managed to get with a scholarship she had earned herself. During the acceptance speech, I looked out at the audience and saw familiar faces, families that had rebuilt themselves after devastating losses, women who had found the strength to start over, children who had started dreaming again. And I realized that my story wasn't about the stolen money. It wasn't about family betrayal. It was about the discovery that our greatest strength doesn't come from the people around us, but from the person we choose to be when we are alone in the dark. There was a time, I said into the microphone, when I believed that family meant accepting anything in the name of love. Today I know that real family is one that respects us, supports us, and helps us grow. And that family, sometimes, isn't the one we're born into, but the one we choose to build. Sophia squeezed my hand. In the audience, I saw women crying, not out of sadness, but out of identification, because all of us, in some way, had already been betrayed by those we should have trusted. We had all had to choose between our dignity and our need to belong. Carl was sentenced to 3 years in prison. My mother never called again. Patricia moved out of state. The family I knew disappeared, but in its place something much stronger emerged. A new family, formed by people who chose me as I chose them. Sophia, of course, but also the friends from the NGO, the families I helped, the community I built. Today, 5 years later, I have a small house of my own, bought with my honest work. Sophia is in college, studying psychology, inspired by our journey, and I discovered something that changed my life. Forgiveness doesn't mean accepting the unacceptable. It means freeing oneself from the weight of anger to be able to move on. I forgave my family, not because they deserved it, but because I deserved peace. I forgave, but I didn't forget. I forgave, but I didn't go back. Because forgiveness and trust are different things. And because sometimes, loving someone means keeping a distance to protect our own integrity. The biggest lesson I learned was that we are not responsible for other people's choices, but we are entirely responsible for our own. I can choose to be a victim or a protagonist. I can choose to define myself by pain or by overcoming it. I can choose to carry the weight of betrayal or use this experience as a springboard to something greater. I chose to be a protagonist. I chose to overcome. I chose to transform my pain into purpose and my experience into a tool to help other people. And I discovered that when we make that choice, the universe conspires in our favor, not because we are special, but because we become people who deserve good things. Because we develop the inner strength needed to build a worthy life. Because we learn that our worth doesn't depend on the recognition of others, but on our own ability to recognize ourselves as worthy of love, respect, and happiness. If you've come this far in this story, know that your pain is valid, your struggle is important, and your capacity for overcoming is greater than you imagine. Sometimes, the greatest betrayals lead us to the greatest transformations. Sometimes, losing everything is the first step to gaining something much better, and always, always, the choice is ours.